This is going to be your guide on how to use Fear Pokemon in Pokemon Sun and Moon. So recently in Fan Fridays, there was a review for a full Fear team. I saw a lot of comments about people asking, what is going on? Why do you keep saying the word Fear? What does Fear mean? And how are level 1 Pokemon beating up legendaries? And that's the Fear, guys. It's a level 1 Pokemon, not trolling, and actually at least trading 1-for-1 or potentially sweeping entire teams. Because they can, and this strategy all comes from Rattata. So Fear is modified over the generations to mean any like level 1 Pokemon that goes 1-for-1 or better, but it started with Rattata. It was Focus Sash, Endeavor, Quick Attack, Rattata. See, we use the A from Quick Attack, and then it spells Fear, and then you just follow Fear. Before the battle begins, you give your Rattata Focus Sash. During the battle, you use Endeavor, and then you use Quick Attack, and then your Rattata wins. That's just how it works. Now, I remember back in the day, in the 4th generation, I actually lost because the opponent's last Pokemon was a Rattata, and I just did not have a counter for it. So you can either play to try to get into that last 1v1 situation, or you can also just try to use it to take out your opponent's Mega Pokemon, take out their MVPs for free. Now, obviously, this strategy does have counters, and that's the interesting thing about All the Fear, that All the Fear has a very specific counter, but overall it's still very powerful against like 90% of Pokemon or something crazy like that. Now the weird thing is Endeavor counts as a physical move, that it doesn't have the status symbol, so it will not work against ghost type Pokemon. Also, if they have priority, then they just outspeed you and out-prioritize you and then you die, and if they have Stealth Rocks on the field, your Focus Sash breaks and then you die. But other than those things, you just win. Like, this is meant for ridiculously tanky Pokemon that aren't playing a heavy status game. Like, one way of breaking this is also status, but if they just have a sweeper Pokemon or something that's doing considerable damage to your level 1, you just get to trade with them for free before they have a chance to do anything about it. So that's kind of Rattata. We also have a Sucker Punch here. Sucker Punch is just going to add to it, like in those really weird scenarios. I've actually been in this scenario where the Sucker Punch would have saved me, but I didn't have Sucker Punch on it. It's like a Gengar with Focus Sash or any kind of ghost type Pokemon with Focus Sash. You proc their Focus Sash, they KO you. Well, you could bring in Rattata, Sucker Punch, and then go into your Fear. Because as long as Focus Sash is alive, you're going to be good to go. If the opponent's switching, or if you find a really weird scenario, there's opportunities where Rattata can just finish off Pokemon and then still win. And then we get into the Aron. So, this was the second introduction to Fear. No spelling out Fear, there was no like Focus Sash or anything, but in the 5th generation, Sturdy got a buff to become a Focus Sash. So as long as you're at full hit points, Sturdy will make you survive at 1 hit points. Before then, it was something useless, like Sturdy will just make you survive at 1 hit points from a 1-hit KO move, like Fissure or something. So it didn't really make a lot of sense, but then it became a Focus Sash, and then that means you could run Shell Bell on the Aron, because Endeavor works as a damaging move. So what worked against Rattata against ghost type Pokemon, well now if you have a full health, level 50, level 100 Pokemon, and you throw down the Endeavor, same idea. They hit you, you're at 1 hit points, Endeavor activates, and that counts as damage towards Shell Bell, so they're at full hit points, and they're at 1 hit points, and then you can go and throw down a Toxic, or do something to make the opponent take damage. Now, here's the thing. Aron's a Steel-type Pokemon, and before the 6th generation, weather was permanent. So you bring in Tyranitar, and if they don't have any way of clearing your weather, now it's always going to be Sandstorm for the rest of the battle. And if they don't have any Pokemon that are immune to Sandstorm, they're at 1 hit points at the end turn, and they get KO'd, and Aron is at full health with a fresh Sturdy. So it's possible for Aron to sweep an entire team if they do not have any way of stopping the Sandstorm. And also, it still works in these 6th and 7th generations, that you really just need the Smooth Rock, and you also need your Tyranitar to die as soon as possible. Like, some people just kind of like, anti-set up with Tyranitar, maybe try to find a KO and then go into the Aron. But if they don't have any Rock and Steel type Pokemon, or any Ground type, or anything that's immune to the Sandstorm, then their life pretty much ends right there, and that's kind of it for the strategy. So you can run it with Sandstorm, you can run it without. It was strong in the 5th generation, but it's still very usable, and we see it from time to time. Now, Magnemite. This Magnemite was one of the reasons why I made this video as well. I was like, alright, I can let the fans, I can introduce Fear to a new generation of Pokemon battlers, but also, the double team tech on that Fan Fridays blew me away. So again, we have Sturdy, but this time with Berry Juice Recycle. So for the first turn, you have a free Sturdy. After that, you need to spam Recycle until the opponent dies, and that's why you want to throw down a Toxic. So you Toxic them, they hit you, Sturdy activates, Berry Juice heals 20 hit points. Well, at such a low level, you get a flat healing of 20 anyways. Back to full health. And then you can recycle, which gives you berry juice. So here, okay, so now you're at full health. You get hit, you have no berry juice, you're at 1 hit point, you use recycle. That gives you berry juice puts you back at full. So unless they do like the priority kind of thing, it's going to be good for the Magnemite. And really, other than that, they need something like the Mold Breaker or Lunala or Solgaleo abilities. So ignoring abilities would also be a way of taking down this Magnemite. But overall, it's one of the most painful deaths in Pokemon. That you just sit there and you take down to Toxic while you beat on this Magnemite that will never die. And also, the only other drawback is there's only 16 PP on Recycle. If Recycle had more PP, this could be some kind of like ridiculous infinite loop almost of just shenanigans. But also, the modification of the strategy was that you double team on the first turn. The idea behind double team on the first turn is, okay, double team, same idea, and then you recycle until they miss. Now, when you miss, that means you have berry juice already, or when they miss, you have a berry juice already, so that means you're free to use Toxic. You're free to use Swagger. You're free to do whatever, and then if the opponent hits himself, or if they do another thing, that's another free double team. And then you can save PP on the recycle as they're doing damage to themselves like that. Now, Steel and Poison type Pokemon do give this strategy a little bit of a problem, but overall, Swagger. Like, you can land a couple Swaggers on the opponent. If they hit you with a +6 attack, doesn't matter because you have Sturdy, and if they hit themselves in +6 attack, they might KO themselves. So that's kind of the idea behind this. You set up a double team, you recycle Troll until you Swagger, they eventually KO themselves, maybe the Toxic if you just want to go for the slow burn, and then you run recycle and die. Next up we have Nosepass. So this is a really interesting strategy that I actually saw work in Fan Fridays, I think a couple times actually, and it's hard to believe. So Sturdy ability, once again, this time an Oran Berry to kind of get things going. So you Toxic the opponent, Oran Berry brings you back up to full health with your Sturdy, and then you just spam Pain Split. That you're still gaining enough health off of the Pain Split to go back to full for quite some time, and then by the time they're at a low amount of hit points, Toxic just one hit KOs them. Now you can also do the double team spam as well, but it's going to be a bit more risky. But also having double team just works out that if they're going for some kind of setup, that they have no idea what the Aron's going to do, what this F.E.A.R strategy is going to turn into, and then they go for setup. Well, it's like, screw it, you're Toxic. I'm just going to double team until you decide to hit me, until you decide to proc my Iron Berry. Then I have to spam my sustain to get the Sturdy back up, and then the next Pokemon coming in, if they miss, that's another free Toxic. And then you start the Pain Split train all over again. So there's a lot of really weird ways that this cycle can loop. It involves a little bit of hacks, but overall, if you can take a free double team, you do it with these strategies, and things are going to get pretty crazy. So then we can go into a Yamask, and now, this is where F.E.A.R starts getting even different. So normally it's about, like, just KOing your opponent in the silliest way Pokemon, but now it can just be some kind of really weird trading 1-for-1, but this does use a Custap Berry, and that's only available in the 6th generation. That when Custap Berry becomes available in 7th generation, there's going to be some hilarious strategies for sure. So this one was Endure Custap Berry Destiny Bond. That's it. You take the level 1 Yamask, says level 100, but yeah, you want level 1 Yamask, and then you get a free Endure, which drops you at 1 hit points. That's going to be enough to proc your Custap Berry. Then you just priority Destiny Bond them, and they really can't do much about it. We saw Curse on this set in Fan Fridays. Again, if they're going for some kind of setup, and you know they're going for setup, you curse them, you try to protect stall, and then you can even switch out your Yamask. Like, oh, they're cursed, they took free damage, I was able to protect them out a bit, and they just go into something that counters them, so yeah, Yamask has double effectiveness for more than just a 1-for-1. And then we go into Mimikyu. So the Pokemon Global Link gave us this strategy, and it's going to be a doubles Trick Room level 1 Mimikyu with Focus Sash. So Disguise Focus Sash, they have to hit a lot onto your Mimikyu, and then you just set up free Trick Room. And now you have priority Pain Split, so you gain all of your health back, and that makes you pretty difficult to deal with as well. And then also now you have Trick Room, so you can have an allied Pokemon like a Marowak doing insane amount of damage, or any Trick Room boss insane damage kind of Pokemon. Put that next to Mimikyu. It's like, okay, do I hit the Mimikyu, which is Disguise Focus Sash, which I need to hit 3 times before I can even kill it, or do I hit this insane threat? Because if you don't hit the Mimikyu, it's doing 1 hit point Pain Splits and taking out insane amounts of your opponent's health. It also has Shadow Sneak, so it can pick off a Focus Sash, and then Destiny Bond. So when you get the read and you understand, alright, Mimikyu's dying this turn, you throw down the Destiny Bond while it's under Trick Room. So Mimikyu trades 1-for-1 while setting Trick Room, while potentially cutting the opponent's hit points down through a Pain Split, and maybe even finding a KO because of the Shadow Sneak. Now this actually works at higher levels as well, because you can do just a level 50 Mimikyu like this. It's not as trolly and makes the Destiny Bond slightly less reliable, but it adds damage to your Shadow Sneak, and then it gets pretty crazy. Or maybe like a mid-level on the Mimikyu, because you wouldn't think a level or 96 base speed Pokemon would be able to use Trick Room. Well, you can at level 1. So at level 50, not as reliable. So maybe you can play around with it like that, you know, find a level 25 Mimikyu, a level 30 Mimikyu, where you can at least keep in a good Trick Room range, but also have a little bit of extra damage on that Shadow Sneak that could surprise your opponent if they're in a specific hit point range, or just do level 1, because that's Spirit of Fear, level 1 trolling. Now, before we go any further, because there are some other Pokemon, like there's modifications to the original Fear that we have Endeavor Feint on a Pikachu. So this has to be level 21 because of the Endeavor Pikachu event. But Endeavor Pikachu event made Fearchu a possibility. But other than that, we can also look at just Endeavor in general, that any Pokemon with Endeavor priority, give it a Focus Sash, and it can become Fear. That is what Rattata started, but it's also just the idea of Rattata. Could you think of anything sillier than Rattata KOing your Legendary and making you lose the battle? It's just the bad manners right there. It's just pretty ridiculous stuff. So there's a lot of Fear opportunities. If you see a level 1 Pokemon and you're like, I think that Pokemon gets Endeavor, or any Pokemon that, I think it gets Endeavor, get ready for some shenanigans, because that is how this strategy likes to play. Also, the Sturdy ability. Now, unfortunately, the Sturdy ability is fairly limited, that, you know, Magnemite has Sturdy Recycle. Now, maybe in the 7th generation, if we get move tutors for, like, the next Pokemon game, Togedemaru, if it gets Recycle, it could be a contender as well. But, you know, each of these Pokemon brings something unique to the table. Like, oh, Aron with Sturdy Endeavor is pretty crazy, and then you can Shell Bell it, and then you just kind of play through like that. And then also, Recycle could be another option for future Pokemon. So, there's probably a lot of strategy that I missed, but I don't want to give it all away. That, you know, everyone that sees a Rattata now immediately knows what Fear is. If you see a Magnemite that's level 1, you know what's up. You know what's up. So if there's something hidden and you have your secret Endeavor strat, please keep it to yourself, because that means when the opponent sees it, they're not going to try to play around it, and then you go and ruin their day. But I came up with some extra ones. Now, Smeargle, okay, I didn't come up with this, but you know, Smeargle, Pokemon of infinite potential, you give it a Focus Sash, except it has extreme speed. So +2 priority, which is why you might see it more than the Rattata, because it's just a bit more reliable on that front. Also has Spore. So if they try to do something, you know, they don't like your Fear, they don't like that, you can Spore them, switch out, now you have Spore, and then you can still Fear the opponent for later. And Spore's just nice, you know, you can, okay, Spore them, Endeavor, switch out, something like that. Now, that's only if the Focus Sash isn't proc. If you know they're going to be doing an offensive move, that's when you just Endeavor Extreme Speed. And then they die to a level 1 Smeargle, because there's nothing that they can do about it. But if you feel like a Ghost-type switch is coming in, free Spore. Switch out. Fierce Smeargle's always going to be a threat for the rest of the battle. You can also just go for the Endure Destiny Bond on a Custap Berry as well. That once Custap Berry becomes available, this might be another way of just, like, doing crazy things with Smeargle. That they say, oh, Smeargle, that's an easy Pokemon to KO. Boom, Endure Destiny Bond. And then you could even run like level 50 or level 100 Smeargle if you want to go for the Moody ability. Sometimes if you Endure, and then you get a Moody Speed Boost. Well, then that means now you can Spore, outspeed your opponent, and then do dirty Smeargle things to them. Now, I was also trying to think about something that like uses the Endure, fishes for a Moody Speed Boost at level 50 and 100, but it just kind of doesn't make any sense when you start to break it down. I was like, oh, you Endure a Custap Berry, and then you can like Spore them, but then you also need Endeavor, and then an offensive move. So you can try to complicate things and catch your opponent off guard, but overall, you know, sometimes the simplest Fear is the best, or in this case, it's called Feast. You have Focus Sash, Endeavor, Extreme Speed, Smeargle. So then I was also thinking about Scolipede. So it just doesn't end at the obvious Pokemon that you can go Endeavor, damaging move, and then Baton Pass off speed boosts with the Scolipede. So this will require a higher level Scolipede. So it's not going to be just a level 1, but if you get in the position where Scolipede is at risk of getting one-hit KO'd, Focus Sash keeps it alive, and then you can Endeavor, well now you're getting the speed boost. And then that means now you're faster than the opponent, pretty much guaranteed, and then you throw down damage, you KO them, and that's going to be extra turns of speed boosting as well. You can protect within there, and then you Baton Pass speed boosts after also trading the Endeavor KOs on the Scolipede. So this is going to be very specific. Again, you might have to play around with the level numbers just to make sure you are as frail as possible. So a Scolipede at level 28 is actually, I think, the sweet spot for this Pokemon. So you're still very frail, and everyone knows what Scolipede's going to do. It's going to come out and then protect. So after that, you protect, you gain a little bit of speed, but you're still not outspeeding most sweeper Pokemon. So this is going to work to a very specific range, and then after that, that's when you just throw out the Endeavor, and then Focus Sash activates, and then all those shenanigans are going to happen again. But because that Endeavor turn, you're now doubling your speed, which means that as long as the Pokemon is under 135 base speed, then they're at 1 hit points, they're Endeavored, and then you can go and take them out with an easy move. You get another speed boost, you protect, you get another speed boost, so you have +4 speed while KOing an opponent, and then you can baton pass that speed boost on the Scolipede as well, and it's going to be pretty easy to KO the level 28 Scolipede. Like, you can just lead this, look like you're a noob with an in-game team or something, and then just absolutely ruin the opponent's day. They can use different level ranges to make it look different, and then different speed investment and whatnot, but that's kind of what we're looking for right there, that we're going to get outsped by a lot of Pokemon, and then it becomes less and less, and then you can kind of adapt on the fly, that okay, they have a Pokemon that's actually in like a 100-ish or an 80-ish base speed, well then that's when you use Endeavor on the first turn, because if you protect, then you're outspeeding them, and it doesn't really work out. So this does have a little bit of variance depending as to what's going on, and then you can catch Pokemon in most speed ranges, and then just find the cheese KO. Now the move option is pretty interesting. You can go with X-Scissor or anything, just make sure it is not Poison Jab, because then that's Steel-type Pokemon being immune. So just make it to where it's a move that can hit every Pokemon and you should be good to go. But also it might actually matter that if for some reason they don't do enough damage to KO you, well, you already have a decent amount of attack, so the X-Scissor just kind of adds that. And that's why the level 50 Scolipede is also very interesting, that a level 50 Scolipede can still work for the strategy, that if they don't KO you, well, if you're uninvested Adamant Nature, you're still going to get outsped by quite a lot of Pokemon, and then you do the same setup. That's like, okay, use Endeavor. If they only do like 60% of your health, well, now you have Adamant boosted Stab X-Scissor, and you're still faster than them. So that should be enough to KO them as well, and then you go for Baton Pass and whatnot. So I think the Endeavor Scolipede has a bit more viability than a lot of people think. And we see the Talonflame right here. Now, Talonflame not for fear, but also because of what you outspeed. At +1 speed, with an uninvested 112 base speed, you outspeed Talonflame. So those are the speed ranges that it works at, which means 130, 135 base speed Pokemon outspeed you on this. But if they don't OHKO you, you still have a high chance of just Endeavoring them and then baton passing off stats. And then we also have F.E.A.R Socks. I don't think I've seen anyone do this. I was just kind of looking for a new strategy to bring to the video. But F.E.A.R Sock is also pretty crazy because it works just like the Nosepass. Alright, Sturdy Pain Split, GG, just like that, and then you can run the Berry Juice. Or you can kind of do it like the Scolipede as well, that you have a high level Sock. So you go level 50 Sock, and then you have a lot of damage, something like the Close Combat, and then you run the Custat Berry. So with this, you're putting yourself in a really weird situation. So the idea is you take a lot of damage, and then you Pain Split, and then you use that split damage to Custat into a Close Combat. Now they have to do enough damage to knock you below 1/4 hit points, and then maybe have your Sturdy survive. But if you can get that going, then yeah, you Custat Berry into Close Combat, you finish off your opponent, and then you have a decent amount of hit points left because of the Paint Split. If they don't have enough damage to KO you, then you can just kind of do whatever. Close Combat is yes and no, because okay, then they just outspeed you and KO you because now you have reduced defenses. That's an issue right there. Remember, F.E.A.R is about the 1-for-1s, and you can do it even with something like a Sock. So maybe this weird idea helps jumpstart your ideas for something else that you can run in Pokemon Sun and Moon, and then maybe more F.E.A.R strategies will happen. So there we go, guys. Crazy F.E.A.R video. Hope you all enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.